Hi, I'm Stephen Weber, and you're watching The Claw's Corner because Rich Sear is a sick bastard. Welcome to the latest episode of The Claw's Corner. Today, I continue my conversation with journalist, MMA fighter and coach, commercial voice actor, singer, and songwriter. What hasn't this guy done? Stick around because we're about to find out. Welcome back to The Claw's Corner, the Renaissance man rocker, Andrew Hagar. Andrew, how are you?
Doing great. How about yourself?
I am doing great. First of all, happy birthday. I know you had a birthday not too long ago.
Thank you very much.
All right. And what better way to celebrate than being interviewed on The Claw's Corner? I can't think of a better way.
Absolutely.
Well, we talked for about an hour before, but you were so busy. I had another interview, so I said we have to do a part two. And I think when we last left off, we were just basically getting into music. We were still in Andrew Hagar, the early years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Talked about you being a journalist, talked about MMA fighter, all these different things that you've done. So now, where our hero last left off, tell me how playing Guitar Hero led you to owning an acoustic guitar.
Oh, yeah. When I was in college, early college, a lot of people were starting to play Guitar Hero, and I thought it was really silly. I've always been kind of the ilk where I'm like, oh, why are you going to play NBA 2K when you can just go, play a pickup game at like wherever, But no, I mean, obviously that's I'm just joking. But no, Guitar Hero is something that like I never thought I would play. I was over at a friend's house drunk one time, and he busted it out. We started playing, and I was like, oh, this is really fun. And then I got like, not like obsessed with it, but kind of really into it. And I got pretty good at it. I won like a little in-house tournament with game testers at EA, like when I was working at EA Games, all sorts of stuff like that. And it just got to the point where I was like, what am I doing here? And my girlfriend at the time felt the same way. She just decided to buy me an acoustic guitar, and she's like, why don't you just start playing real guitar instead of playing Guitar Hero? And that ended up being one of the best decisions I've made, because I took to it really naturally. I mean, for probably fairly obvious reasons. It's in the blood, but also all the stuff I had done playing Guitar Hero. I mean, it's not like you're actually making chords, but you're working on this weird hand-eye coordination, the connection between like your left hand and your right hand, changing positions with your left hand while you're working the rhythm on your right hand. So playing guitar isn't that much different. Obviously, there's some nuances you have to learn with your left hand, how to make particular shapes when you're chording, and then learning, scales and all this other stuff. But the rhythm component of the right hand is something that I was really surprised how well it translated from like playing the video game to playing an actual guitar. And then, that was a long time ago. So that was like literally the beginning of my journey playing guitar. And I just was kind of a nut. I would go online and practice, songs that I liked, or like look up tabs and stuff and look up videos of people playing on YouTube. And I just got like really, really deep into it as kind of a hobby for a while. And then by the time I started actually writing music, I learned how to play all sorts of stuff. I was playing a lot of metal and stuff, and just trying to learn how to like sweep pick and, do pinch harmonics and all this stuff. And when I started writing songs, I just threw all that out and was like, cool, I'm just going to write like old fashioned, singer songwriter, little like open chord stuff.
So with singing and guitar playing, you're completely self-taught.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, people would think that, having a dad like I do, that he would have taught me, or my mom, but no, I had no teacher for a long time. And like I said, I would never, ever sit here and try to sell myself as like some virtuoso musician or guitar player. Like I always say, I'm a songwriter, primarily first and foremost. But I mean, I do know how to play guitar, play a little bit of mandolin, play the harmonica, that stuff too. And I like to mess around.
Well, you mentioned obviously you have a very musical family. Obviously your dad, but also your mother. Didn't she come out with an album?
My mom did come out with an album a long time ago. It's more like Americana, kind of alternative country, a lot of like cowboy poetry stuff on there. But very cool. She's an incredibly talented songwriter and a very good singer. She's also very timid, and so they had a whole tour booked for her, like playing mostly, cowboy and like country adjacent stuff with her friend Paul. But before the first show, she got crippling stage fright and realized she didn't want to do
Oh,
it.
so does she still record it all?
No, she doesn't really record. She still writes and messes around sometimes, but she's an incredibly talented writer too. Hopefully, she will be publishing her first book sometime soon. But I've been trying to get her to, to just write because she's incredibly talented. I'm telling you, it's crazy.
You have good genes in the family.
Yeah, I'd like to think so too. Thank you.
Right. So when you first started writing music, and did you form a band, or were you writing more acoustic solo stuff?
I was writing mostly acoustic solo stuff. I mean, at the time when I first started writing music, I was playing around with a couple friends in like a really casual, just fun like punk band. But the stuff that I was writing was still like very singer songwriter acoustic. Um, and I wasn't writing for any reason other than just to like work stuff out. Some
Yeah.
things were happening in my personal life that I needed to kind of work through, and music was a perfect outlet for it.
So when did you meet, and how did you meet Kelly Christopherson?
Um, so I was really good friends with her older brother, Jesse Christopherson, through college and after college. And he was like an MMA fighter. I was a Muay Thai fighter and an MMA coach. And so we got along really well. And obviously, we had the whole famous parent thing, which was kind of a weird bonding point for people too, because there's a lot of really interesting things you have to work through as an individual growing up like that. And so, you kind of meet a kindred spirit when you meet somebody that's coming from the same background, because it's very rare. So Jesse and I are really good friends. And he was, I think, just starting his job with the Coast Guard at the time. He'd been working maybe a year or something, and he was taking his leave to come home and visit his family. And I think there was a Conor McGregor fight on. I want to say it was Conor McGregor versus Chad Mendes, and Jesse was going to come over with one of his brothers, because I used to have like people over for fights back then. And he said, "Oh yeah, I think I'm gonna bring my sister." I was like, "Cool." And I had met, all of his brothers. I had never met his sister, and she came over, and we just hit it off. I actually didn't even know that it was his sister at first. I thought it was his younger brother Johnny's girlfriend, and so we were just talking. I was like, "Boy, she's being real friendly with me right now. Like, that's kind of weird." But yeah, no, we hit it off like crazy, and we started dating very shortly thereafter. Even though I had my apprehensions, I'm not the kind of guy that's trying to date his friends, siblings. Like that's
Yeah,
not a good look. You know what I mean? That
could go
creates a lot of
terribly wrong.
yeah, it creates a lot of weird issues downstream, and yeah, but we had a really unique bond, Kelly and I, and yeah, I mean, the rest is kind of history. It's a shame that things didn't work out, but they did work out for the best. I'm sure for her as well. It worked out very well for me.
I love how
But
you and all the second generation, like you and Trev, Luke at there, you and Kelly. I mean, all the second generations are definitely doing their own things, making their own legacy. It's great. I love it.
yeah, yeah, it's cool. I mean, I know quite a few people that I met, especially through Trev Lukather, and everybody's just kind of doing their own thing. It's cool.
Yep. All right. So, like I said in the last interview, I just love the song titles you come up with. And another thing I love
Thank
is
you.
the name of your band. What is the name of the band you had with Kelly? That is
The
great.
Appalachian Murder Bunnies. Yeah, we
Where
were
did
we
that
were
name come
talking
from?
about. So Kelly was a very fantastic songwriter. She was like, all through her youth, like growing up, she would go out on tour with her dad and sing harmonies, play banjo, like all sorts of stuff. And we were talking a lot about Appalachian murder ballads and like this legacy from Europe. Essentially, like people would come over and early songwriters in the early American days, people that lived in the Appalachian Mountains, there became like a little subgenre of like folk music called the Appalachian Murder Ballad. And if you look at a lot of really great, folk or Americana or outlaw country artists, a lot of their songs are like murder ballads. Johnny Cash famously has many murder ballads. Chris wrote a bunch. Everybody from that era had their fair share. And I was so fascinated by that topic of music that when we were talking about, oh, what do we name our project? I was like, why don't we just call it the Appalachian Murder Bunnies? It was kind of funny. So we did it. I came up with a cool little logo and had my friend Laura, who's a designer, design the logo. We made T-shirts and we sold the hell out of those things on tour. I got to say, like some nights we were outselling Chris in merch, which is crazy. So,
I love it. If you still have some in the closet, I will buy one too. Because
oh yeah, no, I wish, man. Those things have been long gone.
wait, what year was this?
This was 2016.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you formed the band with Kelly, and did you actually go on tour with Chris?
Yes, we did. It was all kind of a joke at first. I mean, we were just like hanging out and jamming. And I think we were jamming at her parents' house in Maui or something, which was beautiful, beautiful place in Hana. And her mom, who was kind of like tour managing Chris at the time, she was like, "Oh, you guys sound great. You should come play a couple shows with us." This was like December, and I think they were going out at the end of January the following year. This was December 2015, and so then early 2016, I was like, I mean, I sure, why not? You know, like that's crazy. I was like so nervous about it, and she kept saying like, oh, like you've never seen like my dad play live, you've never seen like his tours and stuff. Like, don't be nervous. I'm like,
Yeah.
I mean, you say this, but like, what the hell? This is Chris Christopherson we're talking about here. So I was really nervous, and yeah, her mom asked us to come on this little Celtic Connections tour in Scotland, and so we went out and played a few shows with him. And the first one was at the Queen's Hall in Edinburgh, and yeah, it was great. I think we sounded pretty good for. Well, Kelly had a lot of experience. I didn't really, but I'd been singing my whole life. I was just trying to focus on keeping everything in rhythm and staying in key when I was singing, and but we went out there and we did it, and we had a little buzz from it, and you know her mom asked us to come out and open for Chris for more shows, and then we ended up opening up for Chris, who was opening up for Willie Nelson. So
Oh,
we opened up for Willie Nelson by proxy, played a bunch of festivals with them. Milwaukee Summerfest, one of my favorite festivals ever, the Newport Folk Fest, which was incredible. We got to open up for Chris on the museum stage, which still to this day, that's one of the coolest things I've ever done in music. And I met so many great people there, people that I still, maintain friendships and contact with all the time too, which is incredible. So yeah. And then, we spent the back half of the year touring all over Northern Europe, the
wow.
Scandinavian country. Yeah, I got to play Finland, Iceland, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, the Faroe Islands. Like we were on tour for just about 2 months doing that, and it was crazy. It was incredible, but the whole experience put a lot of stress on Kelly and I's relationship, and unfortunately, things did not work out after that tour, and that was kind of where I started doing the solo stuff.
Huh. I have to ask you because Willie Nelson seems like one of the most down to earth, genuine guys. I mean, was he just turned 90 years old? I see him in all
Yeah,
these interviews. He and Johnny Cash are two concerts I wish I could have seen.
yeah.
I can still see Willie, I guess. I'm not sure if he's touring. I know he just did something recently. I saw because he had a birthday, but uh,
Mm-hmm.
did you ever have a chance? Well, first of all, let's talk about Willie because we already know Chris is great. Did you
Yeah.
ever have a chance to hang out with Willie and talk to him?
Couple times, yeah. He was mostly just sticking on his bus, and I'm not the kind of guy that wants to impose on
Yeah.
anyone. So I went over and hung with them a couple times. One time in Atlanta, I went on his bus and smoked with Willie, and that
Yeah.
was a big mistake. I turned into a house plant, and all the rapport I spent building with a friend that night and his family just poof up in smoke, literally. And,
Literally.
had to go back to my own bus and crawl into my bunk in the fetal position. Crazy.
Oh
So
man.
I mean, I'm sure some people can hang. I could not. So,
Yeah, yeah,
but Willie seemed like a really, really super cool, down to earth guy. I know,
yeah.
my father has a friendship with him as well, and he's always maintained that. Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of Chris, I was all the different artists besides what he wrote himself. I mean, in the
Mhm.
movies he's performed in. But I mean, he wrote for what? Roger Miller, Jerry Lee Lewis, Carly Simon, Waylon Jennings, Roy Orbison, Johnny Cash, Janis Joplin. The list goes on and on.
Yep. Oh yeah, yeah. It's pretty incredible. And I mean, whether he's singing the songs himself or other people are singing his songs, they're incredible songs. He's such a amazing songwriter that has a way of conveying like these really heady philosophy topics and stuff about love and just heart wrenching things in such a beautiful way. Getting to hear his music every night when we were on tour with him was a real treat and a real blessing. He has so much wisdom to share too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, all the stories you're telling me, you really didn't have to go to school for music because you had the ultimate school right there with growing up with your father, going on tour with Chris and Willie. It's just that you had the ultimate. I mean, playing with the best must be. So, did you ever come out with an album, EP, or demo with the Appalachian Murder Bunnies?
We had a demo, but we didn't really release it. We had a limited run of like printed stuff that we were selling uh, on the during the tour in Scandinavia, but we never really came out with anything. We had some stuff like some offers on the table, people to like develop us and other stuff. We cut a couple singles that we didn't release. But I ended up one of the songs that I wrote, like she wrote some songs, I wrote some songs, we wrote some songs together. And a couple of the songs that I wrote during the time when we were together, I released later on a demo EP that I created shortly thereafter. But yeah, no, we had some cool stuff. I remember Kelly wrote the skeleton of this song "Drunk Enough" that ended up being like this weird thing that I won't get into too deep. But yeah, it was basically a song about like us breaking up
Right.
and having to get really drunk at someone else's wedding that you were in love with. And I was like, God, this is yeah, brutal. So that was kind of a I don't know, like losing the word, but yeah, it was a very emotional time. And some of the stuff that we were writing about, I guess, was kind of like peering into the crystal ball about the future, you know what I mean? So
Yeah. It's kind of funny. It's I saw interviews with Carrie Fisher when she was still alive. She goes, "Oh yeah, that song from Paul Simon's about me. Oh yeah, the other song from Paul Simon's about me."
oh
This is
yeah.
after we broke up, so
Yep.
he came out with some of his best soul stuff because of the breakup.
That's how it goes. I mean,
Look at
for
Taylor
years, like
Swift.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, for years after all that stuff happened, I mean, even though I had like emotionally moved on and gone to therapy and like
Yeah,
really like leveled up in terms of my personal development after all that stuff happened, I was still writing about the emotions that I felt during that experience because it was like that was like one of the roughest breakups I ever had in my life, you know.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, but again, like one of the best experiences that ever happened to me. I'm a completely different person now for the better in the best way. And I've grown so much, and I have really, no one to thank but the Christoffersons, and obviously the work that I did myself. But you know,
yeah. Sometimes you don't realize at the time, but could be the best thing that ever happened to you. But it could take years to realize. I'm like, you know what? If that didn't happen, this wouldn't have happened, and that's happened to me in my life too. It's at the time it sucks.
yeah,
You wish it would never happen like that. And a couple years later, I'm like, you know what? If this didn't happen, I wouldn't be here in my life. So I definitely know what you're saying. And I love the fact we talked about in the first interview that you use your lyrics as therapy and your songwriting as therapy. And you can,
yeah.
and it's good as a musician, you're able to do that. So after the Appalachian Murder Bunnies, what was your next step? Did you go to your own solo stuff?
Yeah, I went to my own solo stuff. I rigorously practiced and wrote every day. I stopped doing pretty much everything else that I was doing in my life, hobbies and whatnot. It's like I would wake up, like meditate, journal, and then just start writing, practicing guitar, writing, maybe a little exercise thrown in there. And if I had any clients to train for the day, I would train them as well. But like, yeah, I was mostly just blindly focused on becoming a better musician and songwriter. And I just knew that like if I didn't do that, I was gonna hate myself later.
Yeah.
Like I had been exposed to this whole other world that I didn't even really know existed. As funny as that sounds, because I'm sure there's someone out there listening to this in the future that's going, "What do you mean? Like you grew up with your dad on the road and blah blah blah?"
Yeah.
But it's like rock and roll and the singer songwriter kind of Americana scene are different, obviously for obvious reasons. But like I didn't ever think that I could do anything in rock and roll because I wasn't like some crazy virtuoso guitar player.
Mhm.
After being exposed to people, especially at like, the Newport Folk Fest, like I was like, oh, I can do this. Like I can express myself truly and authentically and say some things that are profound that people can relate to through my music, like absolutely I can do that. And knowing that and being exposed to it, like I said, I didn't have any choice but to just throw myself headfirst into becoming a better songwriter. I just, that was the only option for me at the time. I would have hated myself down the road if I would have done anything else. So
No, exactly. I would rather go head first, full force, 1,000% into everything, throw everything into it and fail than never
yeah,
try at all. So I'm glad that it's actually worked out for you. You didn't fail, and you're so. But I mean, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's like whatever I do, I put 1,000% into it, and
yeah,
I know. And just I would hate myself if I never tried. And so I
yeah,
definitely know. Did you ever see the movie A Mighty Wind? Christopher Guest.
yeah. Oh yeah, it's a great movie. Big fan of Christopher Guest movies. They're hilarious.
When you were talking about the folk fest and all that, it reminded me of that
Oh yeah,
movie.
yes, very much. Yeah, but that the Newport Folk Fest especially. I mean, there's a lot of really cool like Americana, bluegrass,
Yeah.
outlaw country ish festivals out there. But like I feel like the Newport Folk Fest is one of the granddaddies of all of them. So many amazing things have happened over the years at that festival. There's just a incredible legacy there, and the family atmosphere. It's just it's indescribable. It's like people talk about like finding your tribe. Like that place was pretty instrumental in just my personal development. It's like a goal to work for. Before I started working with Trev and kind of branching out musically, I was pretty, you know, 100% focused on just doing whatever I had to do to get back to the Newport Folk Fest without riding anybody's coattails. Obviously, like we wouldn't have been there had we not opened up for Chris, but
Yeah.
it was my goal at the time to make a body of work that was good enough to get me back to Newport Folk Fest on like just my own 2 feet.
Yeah. Well, I always say, I said, maybe like use an example. Maybe that got your foot in the door, but once you get your foot in the door, you have to prove yourself. If you sucked,
Yeah.
they're not going to keep you there. So you got
Yeah.
in there, you showed them how good you are. Maybe and that opened the door for you, but that your talent kept you in that door, kept you in that room. So
Yeah.
now
I
I've
mean,
been
it
to the
took a long
Newport.
time.
Yeah, but you know what? Though great things do take a long time. I mean, every once in a while. That's why, right? Perfect segue. Because what's your opinion on these reality shows like American Idol and America's Got Talent? This is
Oh,
all right. I'll get your opinion first. I want to tell you what I think.
okay. Yeah. I mean, basically, there's a lot of talent on those shows for sure. Like there's some ringers, but the way that the contracts work on those shows, it's incredibly predatory. I mean, it's hard to get a contract in the music industry, whether we're talking about a label deal or whatever, that's not predatory in some way, whether it's a 360 deal or they're just like locking you up with your, image and likeness rights and all this stuff forever. But if you look at the history of those shows, most of the really successful people to come out of those shows did not win. They
Yes.
got like second or third place because then they didn't get tied down to the incredibly restrictive contract.
Mhm.
So I think that at the end of the day, it's fun, it's entertainment for people, it's a great showcase. But I have a couple close friends who were winners on shows like that, and it like almost ruined their careers.
Mhm.
So that's kind of how I feel about it.
No, what I wanted to say was, I don't think when people win shows like that, they don't appreciate going on the tour bus, going in the van, going from town to town, the suffering that it took to get to where they are. Instead of all of a sudden they're on a show for maybe 2, 3 weeks, and now they're playing stadiums, and they don't appreciate and they don't understand. And then another thing is, a friend of mine, because I used to do stand-up comedy, a friend of mine was on America's Got Talent, and all he was an open micer before that. But somebody saw him, they loved him, and then after that, it was the biggest crash for him. I mean, he really melted. Like it just that
Yeah,
so because he had this big. He went from this these small clubs in New Haven, Connecticut, to Radio City Music Hall, and he couldn't handle it. He came back to
no,
Connecticut. So I think that for me, like you said, maybe it's entertaining for some people, but I just don't think that it's good. And it's funny that you said that because I'm supposed to interview Constantine. He was like down third or fourth and whatever that was. And I met some other people that were on that show. And like you said, they're either doing Broadway plays or doing other things. And I
oh
didn't
yeah,
realize how much more the people that, I mean, the only one I could think of that one that's successful is Kelly Clarkson. Oh, and Carrie Underwood, those two.
right.
Other than that, and I'm sure you know this, when Carrie Underwood tried to write her own, Kelly Clarkson tried to write her own songs, Clive Davis said, no, I'm writing the songs. And she
Oh,
tried to write it, and then she basically tanked for that second or third album because she wanted to do what she wanted to do. And they said, no, we own you. So
that's how it works, unfortunately.
yeah,
When you sign those kinds of contracts, you're beholden to the corporate interest, you know, and the
yeah.
corporate interest is usually not in your interest as an artist. So it sucks. I mean, I know a lot of people who are songwriters in like the Nashville scene, for instance, and a lot of the big artists out there. It's the same thing. If you're writing a 12-song record, you would be lucky to get one or two of your own songs on there. Most of them are just written by the Nashville songwriting machine. You know, that's how record labels, publishing entities, like all these things, that's how they get everybody paid. That's just part of the system. So, you know, a lot of people that watch this stuff that have dreams of being a songwriter, dreams of being a big star and stuff, they don't really understand the business side of things. And it's like, at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's the music business, it's music industry, and it's not necessarily artists first. You know, there's plenty of talented artists, so many good bands that most people will never hear of, and it's unfortunate, you know, but that's the way it is.
Well, that's why I like what we were talking about in the last interview when you said that Spotify wanted you to do what, at least one song a month, I think it was. And you said,
Yeah,
because
once
I have,
every 4 weeks.
yeah.
Yeah,
And I like
crazy.
what you said, quality over quantity. And I agree with that.
Yeah,
It's like,
it'll
I
come
miss
out when
it.
it comes out, you know.
Yeah. Like you said last time, like go out for 18 months, live your life, have new experiences, and then you'll be able to be a better songwriter because you'll be able to relate to those experiences instead of like, all right, let me just come up with something really quick that's going to be catchy. Hopefully they like it. And then, another month have to do it all over again. So I,
Yeah.
you're doing the right thing.
Thanks. You can't draw water from an empty well, you know, and
Yeah,
it's like
exactly.
the expression going to the well. You know, it's like if you write the same song over and over again, maybe it'll make some of your fans happy, maybe it'll make the label happy, but you as an artist, you're probably not going to feel very fulfilled doing that, you know?
Well, you know what I like about you is because you have so many different tastes. You mentioned you were in punk bands, folk, rock. Do you ever get pushback from the fans saying, "Hey, we expect you to only do this"? Because sometimes I hear that from rockers. Like, I'll give you an example. I think when Metallica first came out with Bob Seger songs, people were like, "Whoa,
Oh
what's
yeah.
this?" I mean, people started free. I think it was actually Lou Reed. They did a Lou Reed song. Oh, you sold out. I'm like, really? They can't play songs they like or they were influenced by. See, I
Yeah.
personally, I always have it open my own music. I love all kinds of music, so I love when people do like that. But I know for the most part, loyal fans like they only want you to do the same album with a different title.
Yeah, no, and that you're absolutely right. I've definitely gotten a little bit of pushback from people, mostly after I did like the folk thing for a while, and then I started branching out a little bit, and I had like a short-lived garage rock project with Trevor William Church that a lot of people seem to like, and still to this day, I feel like that's one of the coolest things I've done because that's the closest to what I listen to on a daily basis.
Mhm.
And I most likely will end up exploring that again in the future, just for my own personal fulfillment, whether it's another one off or an EP or something. Like I got a lot of that stuff in me because I was working on a full length with Trevor William Church probably right around the time his band Haunt started to blow up in the metal scene. And we never ended up completing our project, but I have a lot of those songs still just, you know, demos that I recorded or voice memos and stuff. I got to do something with them.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, there's still people. There's a radio DJ from Ventura that just is constantly hounding me to release a new song from that project, and it cracks me up because it's been like I think I came out with that in 2018 or something, and it was just one song, but I did a cool music video for it and stuff. That was just really weird, and you know, it was all big analogy about corporate life and how I'd rather die than go back to working corporate. You know,
I
like
never heard it, but I like it already.
yeah, it's called mourning ritual, like you're mourning the death of someone.
Yeah,
And the band or the project was called Hagen Alter,
I
like
like
an
it.
alter ego. Yeah, it's cool. That's actually the first time that I worked with Luca, my artist and designer from Italy. He does all of my cover art. He's so cool, and his artwork is just incredible. But I had him do a really cool little piece for that, and yeah, I'm pretty stoked. I mean, to this day, like I said, I still really like that song.
Can
But
you find that video on YouTube?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Hagen Alter,
Yeah, check it out.
Hagen. Yep. hang an altar, morning ritual.
You know, I heard an interview with Paul McCartney. He said when he was with the Beatles, he would even after post Beatles, he would listen to the last album and then try not to. So he wanted to make sure he wasn't copying himself from the last album. So he'd always try to change it every album.
Yep.
And unfortunately, I mean, I don't know if we talked about this last time, but you'll never have that kind of progression with bands anymore because these producers won't let them get that far. They'll be like, going from Love Me Do all the way to Sergeant Pepper's. And somewhere
Yeah.
in between, they're going to like, you're right, we're releasing you from your contract. We don't like what's coming out. It's not what we signed up for, which
Yep.
is really sad because, as you said, musician grows, they learn more, they change over time. And so you should let them explore a little bit and find themselves. And I mean, for me, that's a perfect example of a band. I love the old stuff just as much as I love the new stuff, but they're completely different bands.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm with you on that. I love watching artists grow. If I really like the artist, and I appreciate their art and what they've done, chances are, even if, the new record isn't like my cup of tea, it's like I'm gonna listen to it, I'm gonna like it. And a perfect example for me, a band that I grew up with is Radiohead. Like,
Mhm.
it's kind of a meme at this point. I mean, but they're an incredible band that literally every single record has been so different
Mhm.
and start to finish. And I mean, so much so that they'd been dropped by labels and they, you know, self-released a lot of their stuff, but it doesn't matter. Like people love it. And I always look forward to hearing the new thing, whether it's a Tom York solo record or even some of the work that Johnny Greenwood's done with his orchestra, and he does so many cool collabs with world artists and everything. It's just, I don't know, it's really cool. I love their variety. But again, not everybody's like that. Some people really only prefer a couple genres. So
Well, you know what? I remember this. I live in Connecticut, and there was a place called Lake Compounds. They used to have concerts there, and it
mm-hmm.
was Van Halen was headlining, and the opening act was Alice in Chains. Alice in Chains
Oh,
at that time got booed off stage. People were booing, and then the next year they were the biggest thing in the world. So it's funny.
there
It's
you
like
go.
how fickle people are.
Yep.
The people that were booing them probably had no idea it was the same band that they love now. It's just
Oh yeah.
but they stuck to their guns. They said, "This is what we are. We're not going to change for anybody." And then they went out on their own and became really big. But I remember that people were just like, "I said, I think they're pretty good. I don't know why everybody's booing." But you know what it
Yeah,
is?
it's crazy.
It's sometimes most. I mean, not most people, but people want to only see the headlining band. That's what they came for. But I can't stand when they don't give the other band a chance because perfect example is when Van Halen opened up for Black Sabbath. They
Yeah.
flew Black Sabbath off the stage, and that's how they became really big in the beginning in '78. So you never know.
Crazy. And my pops had some moments like that too. I think he was opening up for Kiss and got booed off the stage and he like mooned him or pulled his, whatever out. Like there was some crazy story. I'm butchering it because I don't really know all the
Yeah, yeah.
all the mythology, but you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
yeah, that happens a lot. I've even had experiences like that too, where, in the early days when I was opening up for my dad doing like an acoustic act, some fans like really didn't like it.
Oh,
But that's just it is what it is. It's like you can't take that personally.
no,
Like
exactly.
as an artist, I mean, because like you said, most people are just there for the main act, and it's like some of these people are just wildly disrespectful. They might be, piss drunk. Maybe they were tailgating all day or something. Like you don't know, and they're just acting out. It's like whatever.
Well, speaking of it, isn't it also true that you got shit from people online because of your dad taking over Van Halen, and the David Lee Roth fans were pissed off at you?
Yeah,
Really?
I've gotten shit my whole life, and then they took they took it online too. I
How
mean,
could
these
wait?
days it's not that bad
Yeah.
because I've blocked like most of the main offenders. I want to say that it's like probably 5 to 10 people
Mhm.
with like hundreds of different accounts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? People who just have absolutely no life, and their complete sense of joy in life comes from just shitting on a stranger on the internet.
You know what I'm saying? I always say that I cannot stand when something gets canceled because they get one or two complaints. And I said it's somebody that would probably never see them in concert. It's probably just some 35-year-old out of work loser, keyboard warrior, making waves, just trying bored, and then they're gonna say, "Oh, let's cancel this." And that's why I was kind of disappointed with the Rolling Stones because they said they'll never play Brown Sugar again. I said, "You guys have been around for 45 years. Nobody gives a shit. The people that see your
Nope.
shows are not going to complain you're playing that." And
No,
it's
not at
just,
all.
I started laughing
It's
when I heard
great.
that. Yeah.
But I mean, for a band like them, I don't know. I mean, I'm torn because I get it. Like they're huge and they're under a microscope. They've been under a microscope for a real long time. They just don't want to deal with the negative press. But on the other hand, it's like they're old as shit. Like,
Exactly. They made it.
it's like they're from a different time. They made it. Like, people are gonna love them regardless. No one's gonna cancel Mick Jagger or Keith for anybody. It's just like, come on, man. Like, that's crazy. Like,
I know.
I don't think you can cancel those guys, but I don't know. It's crazy. The world's a different place now than even 20 years ago, let alone when those guys were coming up.
Oh, exactly. Even if they did cancel the Rolling Stones, I don't even think Keith Richards would know.
No, he's still out, man. He's still out there, wild as hell. I had a
I
couple
love it.
friends that saw him at like a party not too long ago, like maybe a year ago or so, and he was just hanging out with the models, just having a good time. I was like, man, good for Keith, dude. That
No
guy
question.
is legend.
Well, I always say a part of a band's, I mean, obviously a producer plays a big part for something. Perfect example is George Martin with the Beatles. Do you have a producer that you work with on a regular basis that you love how he makes you sound?
I mean, I've worked with Trev for the last couple of
Oh
years.
yeah.
We did this record together, Trev Lukather,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's been really great. It's been a different experience for me. But other than working with Trev, it's like I worked with Trevor William Church. I really liked the stuff that we did together. I've worked with other people. I did most of my early stuff with close family friend and studio engineer here, Jamison Durr. He's super talented and works with a lot of great rock and roll bands.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I still want to like get out there and work on like my own production skills as well. It's like with whatever side projects or whatever I do in the future, like especially the garage stuff, I want to just make it happen myself. It's like I've been doing DIY stuff my whole life, and I feel like I need to like go down the rabbit hole a little bit more with my own production, in the future. Maybe not on like the wider release stuff, but like I said, at least on the side projects.
I heard an interview with Prince at one time, and he said that I want to say, I mean, it probably wasn't Clive Davis, but it was somebody big. They wanted to sign him. He goes, "No, I want to produce myself." He goes, "You can't. You're like 15, 18 years old, whatever, however old he was." He goes, "No, I want to produce my album." He goes, "I don't want you to sign me then." And he turned down, I think, 3 record contracts because he wanted to do it himself. I mean, he stuck to his guns, and it worked out for him. But
For sure.
yeah, have you ever met Rick Rubin? Because
I've never met Rick Rubin. I would love to hang with him though. Super interesting cat.
I mean, he's worked with so many different bands. I mean, Beastie Boys, Slayer, Johnny Cash, Neil Diamond. The reason I bring him up was I interviewed the singer from Saliva, and
Mm-hmm.
he was just saying, he does nothing. He's worked with people, and he
Yeah.
doesn't do anything. But then I would talk to other people, and they love him. And the reason I bring it up, I just saw an interview with him on 60 Minutes. It might have been an older one. I was watching on YouTube, and they were talking to Chuck D from Public Enemy, and he goes, I didn't even know he was in the room. I thought he was sleeping. Then all of a sudden he wakes up. He goes, try this, do this. And then he was saying that he's more spiritual and he goes by more feeling. He goes, I let the artist be the artist. And then now I realize why the Bobby Emery from Saliva was saying that, because he goes, yeah, he says he does nothing for the band. But then he has his own, I was just curious, like if you ever had a chance to work with him or talk to him, because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, almost everything this guy touches turns to gold. It
Oh
seems
yeah,
like, I mean, like
for
he
sure. I
brought
mean,
back Johnny Cash.
yeah, exactly. And he's kind of the person like when a band's getting really popular, a lot of times they'll send him to Rick Rubin and make a record with Rick Rubin. He's kind of like, I don't want to say the gatekeeper, but he's definitely somebody that is like on the track when you're moving up through the industry. There's so many different artists from all across different genres who have done records with him, and either like they were blowing up when they did the record with him or they blew up immediately afterwards. I mean, like you said, all the people that you just mentioned, plus like the Hives made
Yes.
a record with Rick Rubin. Lucas Nelson did a record with Rick Rubin. Like so many different people from disparate genres have worked with him. And he is kind of like the guy. Like if you do a record with Rick Rubin, you've pretty much kind of made it, I feel like, because even to get your foot in the door, he's got so many people just beating down his door trying to work with him. I'm sure he's got to be kind of selective, and he probably has some liaison at a label or something, or some tastemaker that's hitting him up, and I'm sure he has a rigorous selection process for determining who he works with. You know what I mean? But
Well,
he seems like a really cool guy.
no, he does. He seems like I mean, the interviews I've listened to, he seems like very mellow, very down to earth. And it was funny because years ago, I can't remember which album it was. I was listening to one of Eminem's CDs, and there was really only 3 songs that I liked. And it's funny, as I found out later, those are the three songs that Rick Rubin produced. They were all different. They were cover songs from I think it was Time of the Season by the Zombies. Another one was
Oh
another.
yeah.
Yeah, so and I said, boy, I love this one. And he did another song like the Book of Love. And I said, this is
Mhm.
great too. And they did another one. All the other ones were produced by Dr. Dre. And the three that I liked the most were Rick Rubin without even realizing it. And then I was
Huh.
listening to an interview with Black Sabbath, and they said the same I think it was 13 was the name of the album. And that was the
Mhm.
first one to go gold. I don't know how long. And I guess he told him, he goes, go back and listen to your first two albums, write music after listening to that, and see what you come out with. So
Love that.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I'd like and I think George Martin was a little bit more involved with like, no, you did this last album. Try this. Try the ukulele this time. Put down the guitar. Try the piano this time. You did it last time. So does Trev work like that too? Does he give you more advice of like how the song should sound, or is he basically just let you be you?
Uh, I mean, it's a collaborative effort. Like when I come in there with Trev, he's usually got a little bit of an instrumental bed, like a demo track or whatever that's mostly instrumental. He might have a couple melody ideas or something. Or in the case of like Red Light Appetite, he had a kind of a demo music track and he had an idea for the song title. He wanted to call it Red Light Appetite. And I'm like, well, what the hell does that mean? He's like, I don't know, bro. Like, you got to figure it out. I'm like, okay. And then I wrote the lyrics, and came up with the melodies. And generally, like, he'll cut a little demo idea together or like one verse section and a chorus section. And then I'll sit there with it for, whatever, 15, 20, 60 minutes, however long it takes. And I'll sit there and write a bunch of lyrics and kind of go through melody ideas in my head. And then he comes back in the room and we go over it and then, hammer out the rest of the song. And usually I'm like writing lyrics while he's tracking, the bass and the guitar and building the drum stuff. And then after we do that, we would go and record it with our buddy Jake Hayden, incredible drummer. And once we have the drum tracks laid down, then Trev builds the real track with all of his real stuff, not just on demo. And then I'll cut the vocals later and do all the harmonies and the backing vocals and stuff. And for a couple songs, we brought in our good friend Steve Majora, our friend Steve Majora. He's like an incredible vocalist and songwriter. Right now, he's playing keys and doing backing vocals for Toto. Incredible guy, but yeah, he put backing vocals on a few tracks that are just incredible. He's like a legit. I don't use this word lightly, but he's a legit musical genius. We do a choir of Steves. I know Trev has done this on a lot of his tracks too, where Steve will come in and he'll just be like, he'll lay a line down and he'll be like, all right, cool, let me double that. And he'll double it. And he'll be like, all right, cool, let me do another one. And next thing you know, there's like 16 vocal tracks of Steve. And it's like, whatever, like 12-part harmonies, not even possible, but you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's just crazy. Like the guy is a phenom. It's incredible. But yeah, so that's kind of the way things work with Trev. We have a really good workflow together. I was really stoked once we got in there and started working because I didn't know what to expect. And it's a really, really great collaborative effort. He lets me do what I do best, which is write lyrics, and he comes up with some really cool music. And I kind of like during the process of producing it, it's like I'll be like, hey man, like this is cool, but like do a little bit more like this, something like this sounds a little bit like early Nine Inch Nails or something. He'd be like, oh cool, yeah, I like that. I'm like, all right, cool. So it is a collaborative effort. He's the producer, but he lets me obviously chime in on things because at the end of the day, it's going to be my music.
That's good. I like
Yeah.
that. You hear all these stories with Dio and Black Sabbath, like he's turning up the vocals, and Tony Iommi's like, no. So at least that when you're producer and you work together and you agree on things, like, all right, yeah, let's try this. Oh yeah, that sounds great. I
Yeah.
think another thing that's been more commonplace are having the teleprompters on stage. Do you have an opinion on that?
I mean, whatever helps people,
Yeah.
I can imagine, like when I was working with Chris, he had a little help with lyrical prompts and stuff, but it's like he was getting into, I think at the time, his late 70s.
Okay.
And he's written so many songs where it's like, I'm sure things start to get jumbled together. Um, so I can only imagine, there was a moment when I was younger and I went and saw the Rolling Stones with my dad, and he would jokingly say, "Oh yeah, I think you see that earpiece Mick Jagger's got. I think he's getting the lyrics fed to him." And I'm like, now we know that it's like, no, it's literally just in-ear monitors. But like he was always joking about stuff like that, like trying to diminish somebody's, appeal or accomplishments. Like they needed some kind of handicap for it. And I'm like, whatever, man. It's like, I don't need a lyrical prompt, but I've also been up there and like forgotten the lyrics to like a brand new song that I was playing for the first or second time. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so whatever helps you have the best show, that's fine. People have a stick up their ass about like backing tracks. And I'm like over here going, okay, like I have a 4-piece band. Like we have keyboard tracks, we have a bunch of harmonies on some songs. It's like we're going to do our best to fill the space. Like there's 3 vocalists, myself included, in my live band, but like we're not going to do like all the crazy backing vocals. We don't have a keyboard player, and it's like extra money to bring these people out on tour. So sometimes having a couple simple backing tracks change a game. It's not like you're up there like Milli Vanilli or something, like faking it. That's not it at all. You're still performing. And like it's in a lot of ways more difficult because your drummer has to play to like the click track. And if they get out of sync for any reason, everything's just totally messed up. So I don't know why so many like classic music fans have a bone to pick with people playing to tracks. It's like probably 90% of touring bands right now at a certain level use some sort of backing track. I mean, even my dad plays to some backing tracks on a few songs. On like right now, it's like he doesn't have a keyboard player up there. You
Yep.
think that the keys that you're hearing when he's on stage is like what are these magic? Are these God's keys? Is somebody behind the scenes playing? It's like come on, like people need to chill on that stuff.
No,
But
no, you know what? I agree completely with that, and I don't mind the backing tracks. What I do mind are the Milli Vanillis, and I'll tell you what I mean.
no, me too.
I heard, speaking of that, that actually happened in Lake Compounds in Bristol. Remember when
Oh,
the CD or the record skipped, and that's when they found out that they really weren't singing. That happened in Connecticut. It
oh,
was,
I didn't realize that was Connecticut. That's
yep.
hilarious.
But what I do mind, or like I heard an interview, I want to say Britney Spears, it could be somebody different, but with somebody in one of those kid bands, and she goes, I can't sing and dance at the same time. I said, well, why are people paying $150, $200, a lot more now, to see you lip sync to an album? I can stay home and listen to the CD or watch the video at home. I'm not going to pay that much money. And you get people like Madonna, Michael Jackson, and all these other rockers that can sing, dance, and do it. So if you really want to, that's your craft. They should be able to at least sing on stage. But I don't mind the backing tracks at all. I completely understand that.
No, I agree with you. I mean, you look at some incredible, like, okay, let's take Trevor William Church, one of my dear friends, lead singer of the band Haunt, lead guitar player as well. I mean, he's playing pretty complex guitar lines while he's singing. And it's not like he just magically can do that. Like, he sits at home and he practices like
Yeah.
crazy to be able to do that. And he's going and playing dive bars and clubs on metal tours. You know what I mean? Like, people are paying whatever $12 to see him. I would pay $200 to see him play live because I've seen that band a million times. They're incredible. One of the
Yeah.
best metal bands that are touring right now, period. And I think it's pretty crazy that, I mean, whatever, you go see Taylor Swift, you're getting like a huge production, like a multi-million-dollar production with all these different, effects, crazy stage, transforming stuff, backing dancers, costume changes. Okay. Like, yeah, that makes sense. I get you have to pay people, but it's still like a absolutely outrageous amount of money, which I have a problem with these days. But a lot of you see like a cool, 4-piece rock band or something like you go see Rival Sons live, like they might have, some cool production elements, but you're going there for the band
Yeah.
because the band kicks ass. You know what I mean? Crazy singer. Everybody in the band musically is incredible. And like, they're not charging $500 a ticket. You know what I mean? They're charging whatever they have to charge because of Live Nation or Ticketmaster or whatever. But at the end of the day, I'm sure those guys would play shows for like $25 if they could. I think most musicians would do that. You just can't do that these days, most places.
Well, even back in the mid '80s, I was watching Dio slay dragons on stage for $25.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Can you imagine what it would be now? That's why, right? This is what I can. I personally can never do it, but I know why she's doing it. His widow, Wendy Dio, wants to do the Dio hologram. I said I would never. I've seen the real Dio about 30 times. I would never pay for it. And she's like, well, it's for people that had never had a chance to see the real Dio live. I said I cannot imagine or fathom paying money to see a hologram on stage. I don't know. It's just my personal opinion.
Yeah,
I'd
I'm
rather
with
see
you
a
on.
tribute band.
Yeah, right. I mean, I guess with AI technology and all that stuff, it might be pretty cool for some people. I'm sure eventually there's going to be a market for that. Like, but most likely doing things that just are outside the realm of of normal stuff. Like who knows, maybe Coachella in 5 years they do like Biggie and Tupac on stage together via hologram. I'd pay $20 to see that. That'd be
Yeah.
some wild shit, you know?
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, like, I don't know, man. Just going to see a Dio hologram seems kind of crazy to me.
Yeah, definitely. I said
Yeah.
maybe for $20, like I said, but I mean, I think they're charging like 150, $200. I said, nah, I think you can't really do that. I'll, s-
No.
I'll just stick to the old DVDs from the 80s that I have of him in concert.
Yeah.
Another big things that bands do, and it seems like it's maybe, well, it's always been popular, but it seems like it's more and more popular, are the rock cruises. Were you ever
Oh,
a part of one?
yes. I did the Rock Legends cruise in February of 2018, and it was a trip. It was a fun experience. I got super sick. A bunch of people on the ship got super sick, but no, it was cool. I'm actually doing the Rock Legends cruise in 2024 of February. Same thing. I want to say it's going to Puerto Rico. Maybe it's going to Mexico. I'm not sure where it's going, but it's leaving from Miami.
All right.
And I'm really excited about it. It's going to be, with the full band. There's a lot of other really cool bands on it. Collective Souls there. I tour with those guys. They're super cool. A lot of really, I think Dwayne Bett's going to be on there. Some other people. Yeah, it's got a pretty good lineup. So
I'm gonna have to check that out. Who was on the
yeah,
last Legends tour?
to be honest, off the top of my head, I can't even remember. It was a
Okay.
blur. I mean,
Yeah.
I played my set, did a family show with Pops and my brother. Got wildly drunk, ate a lot of Johnny Rockets. It was kind of a blur. I think Taz, that young guitar player kid, was there. That guy's
Okay.
amazing, so good. He was on that, I want to say, and a bunch of other cool bands. I mean, it wasn't just like older classic rock acts. There were some younger acts on there too. But yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about the present and the future because I definitely want to check that one out. I was
Yeah.
going to go on a '70s cruise not too long ago, and one of my favorite bands growing up was America. They were the headliners
Yeah.
on it, part of all these different '70s music that I grew up listening to. And
Wow.
I couldn't get the money in time. I was waiting for my income tax money, and it came two
Oh
weeks
yeah.
later. Like, oh, but
Oh
I love the cruises, and I love the fact that you can have all these bands on there, and just are you able to? I know you were sick on the last one, but are you able to mingle with the people on if you
yeah.
want to? Yep.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I was just like going around, like it was kind of crazy that particular cruise because my pops was like the headlining act on the cruise, which is why I was even able to be there. They're not going to
Yeah.
invite me. Back then, I was doing a solo acoustic thing too, so it was
Yeah.
just me up there with an acoustic guitar and a harmonica. But they gave me the smaller theater, and like it was packed. I couldn't believe it, and everybody was super cool and supportive. That was a huge turning point for me because I had had so much pushback over the year of 2017, opening for my dad as an acoustic act. So many people were like, "Oh, what are you doing? Play rock and roll. Oh, do some Van Halen covers. Do this, do that." And I'm like, I got to do what I'm doing, man. Like this
Exactly.
is me. And then 2018 was very different for me because that cruise started the year and everyone was so cool and supportive. I was like, man, this is totally different. What the hell? Maybe I can do this.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were a lot of fans on the boat, like redheads. Those are my dad's, hardcore fans called redheads, right? And
Yeah.
there were a lot of redheads on the boat. So anytime I would leave my cabin and go somewhere, they'd be like, "Hey, Drew, what's up, man? Let me buy you a drink." And I'm like, "Oh shit, man, it's 12 p.m., bro. I'm not trying to drink right there." They're like, "Whatever, man. We're on a boat." So next thing you know, people found out what cabin I was staying in, and people are banging on my door at like 2 in the morning. Yo, little Hagar, man, let's get fucked up. Like, pardon my language if I can't say that, but yeah, it was just
That's funny.
it was a trip, man. But yeah, it was cool. I got to hang with a lot of people that I'd never met before, people that I had just talked to, on Facebook or Instagram, and everyone was super cool and super supportive, and it was a really good experience.
All right. So this time again, you're going to be with the full band, you said?
Yeah, full band this time.
All right. So now with music, as I mentioned before, like you're the Renaissance man. You've done so much. In the intro, I mentioned that you were also a commercial voice actor. So
Yeah.
What are some examples of that, and how'd you get involved with that?
Still doing that. God, I'm like, I've been doing that kind of on and off since I was in high school. Like, I had a radio show for about 3.5 years in high school as part of a radio station program we had there. And it was supposed to be a senior elective. Like, you got to do it maybe your senior year if you were lucky. I did a guest appearance on someone else's radio show, a friend of mine, during my freshman year. And Hamish Tyler, the director of the department, loved it. And I ended up weaseling my way into getting a radio show for 3 years. And it was really cool, man. I played a lot of different eclectic music. I didn't have one specific genre I was sticking to. And every hour or so, sometimes more frequently than that, you'd have to read ad copy.
Mhm.
And so I got used to it really early, reading ad copy. And then, I always watched a lot of cartoons. When I was a kid, I watched a lot of anime too and stuff. And like, I thought, man, it'd be really cool to do voice acting for like video games or something, or cartoons or movies. And then when I was working at EA Games a couple times for game trailers for Command and Conquer, they had me do voiceovers for that. And I've just dabbled all over the place during the years, kind of before I started playing music. And then randomly, while I was doing my residency at the Hotel Cafe, I think it was 2018 or 2019, one of my friends from Texas came out. He works for Dell. He was shooting a big Dell campaign in LA, and one of his producers was with him, and he brought him to my Hotel Cafe show. And this guy Jason was like, "Hey man, you got a really nice speaking voice." I was like, "Oh, thanks, man. Like, did you like the show?" He's like, "Oh yeah, no." He's like, "Your singing voice is great." He's like, "Everything's great." He's like, "But you got a really nice speaking voice. You ever thought about doing like commercial voiceover?" And I was like, "I mean, I've done a little bit of voiceover before, but yeah, I would love to do that." And he like got me in with Dell, and I ended up submitting for a couple Dell campaigns. It didn't work out the first couple times. They went with a female voice, and I was like, damn it, like, I don't know how you get down to like two people, and they're like, you know what, we're gonna go with the other person. I'm like, okay, no worries. And they're like, because they're a woman, and I'm like, oh well, why the hell did you even have me read for this if you wanted a
Oh,
female voice? Like, what the hell, man? But it's all good. I mean, we ended up getting it the third try, I think, and yeah, I ended up doing like a national, Dell ad campaign, which was so cool. And since then, I've kind of been doing a lot of random stuff, smaller audio books and ads through like Amazon, and a couple documentaries, a couple like other things in the pipe right now. There's supposed to be a rock documentary they want me to do, and maybe doing some work for television soon. But yeah, I'm like just trying to build up my portfolio and my reel so that I can get like real commercial representation, and then hopefully from there branch out into like cartoons, video games. Like I was saying, that's really my end goal. Because I've been doing weird voices and stuff since I was a kid. Like that's just a huge part of my
yeah.
personality. Even when I was like, we're playing Call of Duty with some friends on mic, like I'd be making voices and just cracking my friends up. They're like, "Man, you got to do this. Like, you're so good at this." I'm like, thank you. Like, I gotta figure out how to make this happen.
It's funny when I for a while I went to Connecticut School of Broadcasting. I graduated. And I worked at several radio stations until I realized I need a job that pays the bills. But
Yeah.
while I was doing that, there was the program director. He said one commercial. He made more in that one commercial than a whole week's pay at the radio station. That's how he goes. He
Yep.
goes voiceovers are where it is, and it's funny because
Yep.
now I have a real job where it makes the bills, where I pay the bills. But I have a self-published book, and I was doing the interview rounds, and I went to this radio station. It's a local radio station, and it's all publicly funded. Nobody gets paid. It's all volunteers. And the guy that interviewed me does another show where they do voice. He has to pay homage to the old radio serials like Flash Gordon, War of the Worlds, things like that.
Yeah.
So he was like, I want to do a couple of voices, and now that show is in Australia, New Zealand, all over the
That's
world.
so cool.
Yes, and I love doing it. I have so much fun. I get to do all these different voices. He'll say, Rich, here's a script. Let's come up with some voices for that. And I've been doing it for probably about 5 or 6 years as
Oh,
a
that's great.
then that's how from that show this show happened. So I mean, I love it. All these doors open for me, and just
Yep.
from so I'm having a good time doing that. So I should have you. I should pay you to read my book. I'd love to do that.
I would do it, man. Yeah, I got a little home studio right here behind me that I record all my voiceover stuff at. So
I don't
Yeah.
know if I can afford you though.
Oh, trust me, bro. My rates are flexible.
We'll talk. We'll talk.
Yeah. I'm, I'm not trying to charge Dell rates all the time. You know what I mean? That would be wildly unreasonable.
We also had some radio experience on Ozzy's Boneyard. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, that was really cool. My friend Tommy Lennon hit me up and asked me if I wanted to do a guest spot on Ozzy's Boneyard, the Ultimate Sinner Takeover, and pick some of my favorite like classic metal tracks, which is cool because I've been a huge metalhead since I was a kid. So I got to talk about some of my, my influences as a teenager and stuff. Huge like Judas Priest fan, so I had to throw that on there, and I love Megadeth. A lot of people talk about like Megadeth versus Metallica. I love Metallica and I respect everything they've done, but like I vastly prefer
Thank you.
Megadeth. Yeah,
Me
and I
too.
mean, Dave Mustaine is an incredible songwriter and lyricist, and he's always talking about weird stuff and just has that crazy signature like growl and snarl. Like I love it. And talk about a talented like guy that sings and plays guitar too, and he has one of my favorite guitar players ever of metal, at least, Marty Friedman, in his band for a while. And man, that solo on Tornado of Souls, I had to put that on the list because I was like, man, that as a kid, I just remember, air guitaring so hard at that song.
It's funny. I saw them at this really small club. I want to say 84, 85. And he was like, just got kicked out of this band Metallica. He goes, here's my new album is Killing is my business. The business is good. Here's a new song. It's not released yet. It's called Peace Sells. So I saw them in the very beginning, and I love them. Like you said, I think they were, to me, far superior, especially now. I like the first three albums from Metallica, Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets, and Kill 'Em All. But after that, I got sick of them. Like when the Black Album came out, for some reason, I just got sick of it. But Megadeth and everything they come out with, it's almost like they put them in ice, freeze them, and then when they're ready to record a new album to come out, because it sounds like not exactly the same, but they still got that raw energy. They still sound like they're on fire, and that they want, and it's great. And I love, like you said, that growl. Like I love for the Four Horsemen, but his version, I know he helped write that song, Mechanics. Is great. I had a chance to interview David Ellison recently.
Oh yeah,
he's such a cool guy.
How'd that go? Yeah.
Well, yeah. So he was talking about like his new band and the movie he came out with, but
nice.
because obviously things didn't go well for him in that. But he said, luckily, I mean, life went on for him, and he's doing even better than ever. So I'm happy. And he's such a down to earth guy too. Such a cool guy.
That's cool. Awesome.
All right. So who are some of the other bands? So you had Judas Priest. You had Megadeth.
Oh yeah, I had to throw Black Sabbath on there as well. Who else did I put on there?
I think Grim Reaper is another one.
Yeah, I had to put Grim Reaper on there. Yeah,
close personal friend of mine.
Grim Reaper is super underrated. I mean, like they're kind of a meme, I guess, like almost a joke band for some people. But like that vocalist, he had some pipes, dude. And like guitar player is great. They wrote some funny songs. I mean, I think like half of their songs have something to do with hell, see you in hell.
Yeah, I love that song.
Rock you to hell. Yeah, like all this stuff. But yeah, I remember watching an old CKY video, and I think like Don Vito was riding around on a mower or something to like see you in hell. And it was one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life at the time. And I was like, man, who's this band? This band kind of rips. And then I found out about Grim Reaper, and I was like, how come nobody knows about Grim Reaper, man? These guys are pretty good.
There was this metal, I think it was a college radio station. I can't remember. I was younger, and try to tune in on the radio, and it could barely come in. But I remember hearing, it's like, who the hell are these guys? These guys are great. So I finally found who it was, bought their album, and like you said, like every song was like "See You in Hell," "Drag Me to Hell," "Burning in Hell," whatever it was. Every song, but like you said, that guy, the singer, was great. I think I think he's dead now. I think.
Oh, really?
Oh man, I heard something about that. I don't know, but I love that band in the '80s.
Yeah.
Do you do any more DJ work now, just for fun? Besides,
no, I mean, like, I made a few like Spotify playlists that I put on my socials and stuff, just for people to check out the stuff that I'm listening to, because there's a lot of really great up and coming like rock, garage, psych bands that I love because I'm really into that scene, but like most people probably have never heard of. So yeah, I just try to put that out there. There's this great great new punk band out of I think they're based on the East Coast called Teen Mortgage that I've been listening to a
Oh,
lot for like the last year. They're sick. This other band, Wine Lips, like these are all just small little bands that I heard because like I had for a while a few years back like a minor obsession with that band King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, which
sure.
I've,
Wow.
I've mentioned a lot recently. Yeah, they're a great like psych rock, garage rock band out of Melbourne, Australia. They put out I think 5 or 6 records in a year, and that was kind of the year that I started seeing a lot of them. Was like, who are these guys? And every record had a different concept, a different sound. They put out a very popular record that's like thrash metal called Infest the Rat's Nest, which was just amazing. And I guess the next record they're putting out is supposed to be like a kind of follow up or spiritual successor to that record. But I want to say they have something like 15 or 16 studio records now, plus a live record, and they're incredible. So through like really delving into that band, I found out a bunch of other cool bands. Like I went and saw them. I want to say in 2017, and Amel and the Sniffers was opening for them. That's another really great Australian kind of like garage grungy band with a great female lead singer. Just amazing energy, great live band. A lot of cool stuff coming out of like the kind of post punk garage and psych scenes, you know. But unfortunately, they're not like super popular in America, so they're more like whatever KEXP, KCRW kind of bands, you know.
Yeah.
But I love that stuff. That's my bread and butter. That's what I always have listened to the most, more than anything else. So, like I said, I try to put together playlists so that whoever's paying attention to me now, they're paying attention to these bands too. You know, even if it's just 50 people or something, every little bit helps. You know.
Now, I want to check these bands out. Where do you have this? Where do you put the playlist? Is it on Instagram or
Yeah, I have them all linked on my Instagram.
okay?
They're all on my Spotify too. So
Spotify. All right, I have to check these out because I mean, what you
yeah,
just said, that's definitely what I like. One more band I want to get into because what reminded me of this was that they were the headlining when Megadeth was opened up for them. Do you like King Diamond?
King Diamond's cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I love.
hella satanic. But like,
Well,
yeah.
what's funny? Merciful Fate was way more satanic than King Diamond is more. What I like about him
Yes.
is that we talked about this in the last interview where you had a whole album to tell a story. So like his
Yeah,
newer
yeah.
albums were more like a horror movie, and I
Right,
love
right.
has more of a horror movie aspect. But I think that and I never had a chance to meet. I know friends that met him, but like on stage, you could just tell he seems like he's really, really. I think it's not really an act, but he's not that dark or he's not that evil. It's just
It's hard to tell with some artists because I mean, like the people who are really into that stuff are not necessarily advertising it.
yeah,
Like he puts, his symbolism, his use of symbols is the thing that really made me go, oh wow, like this guy's putting like the Leviathan cross on everything he does, which
yeah,
is
yeah,
very aggressive, very aggressive. But
yeah.
but yeah, so it makes me wonder how deep he really is into it as a human being, you know? Because like I said, most people who are really wildly into that stuff don't really advertise. Like the whole satanic panic thing was hilarious to me. I love it. I just saw a comment on Red Light Appetite on my music video on YouTube. I don't typically read the comments, but sometimes I'll get an email. And if I'm in a spicy mood, I'll open it up and see what the hell somebody had to say about my music. But so I was feeling a little spicy the other day, and I opened it up, and some guy was like, "This song rocks, but the video is a little satanic." And I'm
Oh my
like,
God.
"This guy wouldn't know satanic if someone came to his house and sacrificed his family." You know what I mean? Like, it's like that's yeah, obviously a joke, but
Yeah,
but no,
that's
just in general, like most of the people out there who are quick to cite something as being satanic don't know anything about Satanism. And I'm not into this stuff, but I mean, I know a little bit about it from friends that I know who are into this stuff. You know what I mean? Other people in the music industry, because there are a lot of people out there, especially in the metal scene, who are very into like black magic, witchcraft, paganism, and all of those things are very different from Satanism, which is just like an umbrella catch-all term for a lot of like Christian folks. You know what I mean?
no, exactly. That's why I think it was funny. Back in the 80s, another big thing was backmasking. Oh my God,
Yep.
there's hidden messages in the record. The
Right.
funniest thing I ever did was Overkill came out with an album. So my brothers
Mm-hmm.
and I had in the very beginning, you could tell it. So I said, all right,
Yep.
let's play it backwards. And this all it said was, "There's no message here. You're just ruining your needle, asshole." Yes.
I love that. I love that. That's so funny.
I know. I think for me, I just enjoy the music. I can really care less what they're doing. If they're not hurting anybody, they're just having, like I said, for me, I think Merciful Fate is obviously very more Satan oriented. When now it's more movies, like I don't know if you, like I like him maybe a little bit more than you, but he has an album called Abigail, and it's if you
Yeah.
actually read the lyrics, it has such a great. I said I would love to see that as a movie. That was
Oh
so.
wow.
Then he has a sequel to Abigail 2, which follows up. So I like bands that do that. And unfortunately, as we mentioned now, it's sort of harder to do that because if he was releasing one song every month, it's not going to piece together with the song before that. And
No.
just, yeah.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I would like to see a return to artists being able to put out these like high concept records. That's why you might really like King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard because every record is like that. And like I got a lot of their stuff on vinyl, and it's like the old days. There's a story there. All of their artwork is really really cool too. So you might dig them.
I think I will. I'm gonna be checking out your Spotify list once this interview's over. Definitely.
Awesome.
I heard you talking about this, and this really intrigued me because I love the movie. What the bleep is this? It's all about quantum physics.
Yeah.
And I heard you mentioning quantum mechanics. What exactly is that?
Quantum mechanics.
Yeah, I heard you mention quantum mechanics.
So quantum mechanics is kind of like well, I guess it used to be theoretical physics. Now we're moving into the realm of it not just being theoretical anymore, but it's studying subatomic particles and the way that things that we can't necessarily perceive can actually be measured and calculated. So there's a lot of really interesting subjects. I've talked about this in other interviews too, but stuff like, spooky action at a distance, quantum entanglement. Quantum entanglement is the idea that once particles like commingle, no matter what the distance between them is, their states are always affected by one another. Mm-hmm. So like I was really interested in like romanticizing these quantum mechanics terms and seeing how they could like apply to concepts like love, or how they could explain things like kind of inexplicable phenomena like you ever had a long time since you talked to a good friend of yours, you think about them and then they call you like 3 seconds later?
Happens
or
all
like
the time to me.
There you go. Or like deja vu and stuff. Like I feel like there's a explanation for those things through quantum mechanics, specifically through quantum entanglement and spooky action at a distance. So I was really fascinated when I was reading about that stuff because I thought, oh, there's got to be a way to explain some of these natural phenomena that we can't really otherwise explain. I always thought that quantum mechanics was gonna kind of be the bridge between spiritualism and science. And, when they discovered like the Higgs boson, for instance, like the God particle, that was a massive discovery courtesy of the Large Hadron Collider down at CERN. But I love all this stuff.
It's interesting.
It's very interesting. And it's almost, like sci-fi. Like people are obsessed with the fact that like, oh, we're moving into this new age, this like, future tech is all over the place. I'm like, we are already living in the future, and we have been for quite some time. Like, and in our, in this next 50 years or so, we're going to see a huge jump. Not that we already haven't, but yeah, it's almost, I wish I could extend my life an extra 100 years just to see what the hell happens. As long as we don't blow ourselves up, some crazy stuff's going to happen, I can
imagine. Well, it's funny because everybody always says, I'll make jokes, and they'll be dark jokes. And you're like, Rich, every time you say something, it comes true. Shut up. Why do you always talk? But it's funny. What made me was so intrigued about this when I was listening to you speak was that I do this all the time. It's like, I haven't heard from my friend Lisa in a long time. All of a sudden, almost like 10, 15 minutes later, hey, Rich, how's it going? I haven't seen. And that's just one example. This happens to me all the time. And it's really interesting. And I definitely believe there is something to it. Now, is quantum physics related to that somehow?
Yeah. Quantum physics is, using physics to explain quantum mechanics or vice versa. Again, I'm not a scientist, never claimed to be, not an expert. I have a very cursory knowledge of all of this stuff. And if I'm offending anyone, I apologize because again, like I'm not Neil, you know what I mean? So yeah, or Bill Nye or any of those guys that claim to be experts.
It's funny. Years ago, I was watching that movie Donnie Darko, and
I love that movie.
They were talking about the wormholes and Stephen Hawking, and I said, no, there's no way Stephen Hawking believes in all this. So I read one of his books, and
he really wrote the book on it.
Yeah, I thought I wasn't sure when I saw the movie if that was they were just using that as like I didn't realize it was a real book at the time. I mean, I know
Yeah.
now and I read, but it's yeah he has this whole thing and that's what that documentary "What the Bleep Is This" or "What the
Yep.
Bleep Do We Know" I think it's called,
What the
talking
bleep do
about
we
like
know?
yeah where we have like different alternate we have different versions of ourselves and alternate universe. It's really interesting and it's sort of you think about it and you're like whoa head rush
Yeah.
how heavy it is.
The whole idea of Donnie Darko in that story is it's a tangent universe, right? That couldn't sustain itself. Yeah, that
Yeah.
it's a really cool story. I remember watching the director's cut years later, just because I loved that movie when I think when it first came to like DVD when I was in college. That's when I saw it. I didn't see it in the theater, and it was of course like a stoner college kid's like wet dream. You know what I mean? But watching the director's cut, it kind of unwound a lot of the mystery, and I didn't appreciate it as much because I'm like, man, it's so much better when there wasn't just an explanation being fed to you, when you actually had to kind of piece together all these different clues.
Hmm.
It just made it so much more exciting. That's one thing I lament a little bit about modern day art is it's very difficult to find a movie now that just presents a few things and urges you to figure it out. Most movies have to have that part where one of the characters is kind of breaking the fourth wall a little bit, like explaining to you what's happening. It's like let the audience figure it out, you know. And if you're a bunch of dum dums in there and you can't figure it out, oh well, you know, go to
Exactly.
Reddit, read about it, whatever you need to do to get it done. But like maybe it's not for you, you know, and that's fine. Not everything is for everyone.
Well, it's funny. So I interviewed, I think I mentioned this to you, Thomas G. Waits, who worked with John Carpenter. And I said, what I
Yeah,
love
yeah.
about John Carpenter is that less is more with him. And I
Oh
said,
yeah.
that's why I didn't like Rob Zombie's Halloween because he tried to explain why he's the boogie. I said, I don't really give a shit why he's the boogeyman. He's the
No,
boogeyman. He kills people. You can't kill him. I don't need to know that he had a bad childhood and this and that.
no.
So
It's scarier when you don't know. You know what I mean?
exactly.
Always. Yeah.
Instead of like I don't need them being condescending to me like, oh, I don't know if you're smart enough to realize why he's a bad man. It's like, no, we can figure this out and I really don't care.
That's so funny.
Another thing I want to talk about before we go, once again, thank you very much for coming back. So
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I love talking to you. There's,
Yeah, I love
I'm
these
learning, I'm
conversations.
learning so much. I'm learning new bands, learning about the quantum physics, quantum mechanics.
The
Another
quantum
thing,
realm.
Another thing I learned about listening to you, and I want my viewers to hear this, was it's called black hatting. We got into it a little bit, but
Oh yeah.
what exactly is that?
Black hatting is just any type of malicious or manipulative action from a hacker, essentially. And so, in the other interview that I did, where I was talking about black hatting, I'm talking about how it applies to the music industry as a whole, specifically to the streaming world. Um, and it's essentially when labels or distro folk use nefarious means to up someone's streams or their engagement on social media. A lot of what labels do behind the scenes is just the same way that people would kind of get bands spins on radio back in the day during the Clear Channel days, right? They're just manipulating things to make it look like someone's doing a lot better than they actually are. And it's a very common practice, more so than most people know. And a lot of your, favorite up and coming indie bands, it looks like they're having a lot more success than they actually are on streaming platforms. And that's just the kind of relationship that labels and streaming platforms have, you know? But then if you have an independent artist that tries to do this, uh, for one, I think, like, again, I went to school for marketing, I worked in marketing, doing analytics for a very long time. It's easy for me to look at like a social media account that purchased its engagement and followers and see really big things that don't make sense, right? Like, let's take my account as an example. Like, I have, I think, 22,000 followers on Instagram, which again, I didn't pay for. I grew that over the last, whatever, better part of a decade, slowly over time. And, it's like, even with the reduced engagement we're seeing on social platforms, it's like I typically get over 100 comments on a post. My likes have been going down consistently over the last 2 years, but like on a good post, I'll get a few thousand likes or something. Like, I look at some other people who have like 50,000 followers and they make a post and like might get 100, 150 likes,
Yeah.
and it might get like 2 or 3 comments. Or you get 2 comments and then 5 more comments that are like, promote on blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
like whatever. Like, you can pay for fake comments just the same way you can pay for fake Yelp reviews. You know what I mean? Or fake YouTube comments. But I remember there was a big fiasco during the last presidential bid of Donald Trump, where Donald Trump was clearly botting and using like a black hatting service to juice up his social media, which again, most celebrities do as well. This is a really
Yeah.
common practice for people that outsource their social media presence.
Yeah.
These companies that do that, they will use these services to make it look like someone has better engagement. It's usually about 60-40, like 60% real, 40%, boosted engagement, shall we say. But, but yeah, there were like probably 200 comments on Donald Trump's post. I think it might've been on Twitter. It might've been on Instagram. I don't remember. And, but it was so funny because it was like the exact same comment that was misspelled the exact same way. It's like you can't make this shit up. I was just like,
That's
oh my
hilarious.
God, that's embarrassing. Of course, nobody cared and everybody forgot about it except for weirdos like me that remember this stuff. But like, it's just it looks bad when you do that kind of stuff. But so many people are doing it now. I think it's hard for a lot of regular folks to understand just how widespread the shit is. And for someone like me that knows what to look for, anytime I see it, I'm just like, ugh, God, like it's like, why? Like you're purchasing fake engagement for your fake followers to look cool for people that don't exist. Like it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense.
Wow. When you
Yeah.
put it like that, it really doesn't make sense. That's
No.
funny.
I mean, I can get why someone would do that for something like Spotify, because
Yeah.
if you're an independent artist trying to get noticed, you want to make it look like you have more going on than you actually do. But the problem when you do this kind of things is that the back end of the streaming services know you're doing this. This stuff, it doesn't look legit. If you're on a botted playlist getting tons of streams, it doesn't matter. It might look cool to you and your friends or something, but like the labels know that you're not getting real streams. The streaming service knows. And like the streaming services have been pulling down a lot of these songs where people have done that. People have been getting in trouble for this. So, I don't really see the point in doing that. But just like anything else, an old sports saying, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. So that's what it is.
I'm kind of glad that the labels knows, because I know that we talked about this last time, where somebody that has 50 million followers on Instagram will get signed before somebody that has maybe like 5 million, but they're much more talented. So luckily, the fact that they're not hiring or signing them because of bots, they know what to look for as well, and they're like, all right,
Yeah.
yeah, we're gonna go with the other guy because he's real. And it's funny because now when I post my YouTube podcasts all over the place, I'll do podcast promotions. Now I get all these emails or messages in my Facebook. Oh, Rich, I can get you 3 million viewers. I'm like, they're bots. They're
Oh,
not.
yeah.
Yeah, I know. I get that. If you
Don't
get,
do it.
no, I didn't do it. It's like for the low price of $79.95, you too can have 4 million viewers. Oh, so 4 million bots.
Yep.
Yeah, so I know people have been trying to do it with me. I'm like, no, I didn't realize. I knew it was bots, but now the way you explained it, it makes so much more sense to me what they're doing and why they're doing
Yeah.
it. But like you said, I'd rather have less followers or less people watching, but at least I know they're real, and at least I know the people that are watching it in the comments are real.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
and that's what I'm saying. It's hard to fake comments. Like that's the thing. Because if you do, I mean, it looks very obvious. Again, it's
yeah,
people saying like the same thing or variations of the same thing. Very like boilerplate type comments and stuff like that, or like just some people. I mean, I have plenty of real people on my page that are just like older people, older fans, like my father's fans, that just comment like whatever, 3 heart eyes. But like again, that's a big botting thing. Bots, you don't need a lot of prompts to just have them put a couple emojis in there. But there are a lot of dead giveaways when you look at these kinds of accounts. So my policy is, if I'm ever suspicious of someone, like I look at a page and I'm like, oh, they're like some label artist. Oh, they have 250K. Wow, I've never heard of these people. And then I click on a post, it's got 100 likes and 4 comments, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay. You know, You can fake likes too, though. It's easy to buy, a bunch of engagement for stuff. But again, the true test is, do people, pardon my language, but do people actually give a shit? If you have a lot of comments on your posts, people are paying attention, they're interacting. Like, that's the true yardstick of engagement on any platform, is if people are actually commenting and really engaging with it, not just liking it. So,
Yeah, exactly. No, I agree with you 1,000%. And I'll stick with my 750 viewers,
Yeah.
subscribers on YouTube, then instead of like 3 million bots. So I'm happy with that. And the comments I get
Totally.
are always positive. People love it. And then it's great when they actually give me examples of what they liked about it. So then I know
Yeah.
if they actually listen to it. It's not like, oh, Rich, that was great. Well, what'd you like about it? Well, I didn't get a chance to listen to it yet. When I get that, but when I get when I get people saying, "Oh, Rich, I love that interview with Andrew. I love when we were talking about black hatting," or so they know exactly, so
Yeah.
they really did listen. And I prefer fewer people doing that than
Yeah.
big people doing nothing.
You and me both, man. Quality over quantity every
Love it.
time. Yeah.
So before we go, is there anything that I missed that you want to talk about?
Oh man. I was going to drop the EP, limited edition
Oh,
Psycho Volume 1, at the end of June, but because of some rumblings which have occurred over the last couple of weeks, I might be pushing that back for the better.
oh,
So
good.
we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, everybody that's watching this, stay tuned to my Instagram and probably TikTok as well for for updates.
So, question for you, because last time we spoke, you said that you were going to release two EPs. Is that still going to be the case?
I mean, that's the plan, unless this new situation that's come about dictates something else. I mean, it's either going to be two EPs or the way that it was originally
Ah,
going to be released, which is a record. So we'll see what happens. Again, not saying anything yet,
okay.
but there might be some better things on the horizon for you, boy. You never know.
So close to a Claws Corner exclusive. So close.
till those dotted lines are signed, I can't say shit.
Nope, I completely understand.
Yeah.
The bots will not say a word.
No, they will not.
Do you plan on going on tour?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah, I
that's
know the
something I,
cruise.
yeah, the
That's
cruise, but I mean, they'll be, regardless of what happens with this thing I'm vaguely speaking about, there will be a tour in 2024. There will be more dates in the fall and probably late summer of this year. Um, but yeah, in the meantime, I'm just gonna keep releasing stuff. I got another single coming soon, probably by the end of July now, and I will most likely have an EP out, and if not, there'll be something much better on the way. So
I'm hoping you're going to be touring the Northeast.
I would love to. If we can afford to get out there and get some shows that make sense, I will absolutely be out there.
Would you ever do a Kickstarter for a tour? Like,
My brother got in trouble for a Kickstarter many, many years ago, over a decade ago now, and there's still people somehow roasting me for it when I didn't have anything to do with it. So most likely, no, I will never do a Kickstarter for a tour or for anything for that matter.
for a guy that has done nothing on his own, you're getting in trouble for breaking up Van Halen and having your father, you're getting in trouble for your brother going on
Yeah,
tour. All
yeah.
you want to do is make some good music, and you're the one getting all the shit.
I don't know why, man. It's I'm an easy person to blame. I guess my easygoing attitude would, makes me an easy target.
All right, so let's do some plugs then. So, where can people find you?
Find me at Andrew Hagar Official on Instagram and TikTok. That's where I'm the most active. I'm also on Andrew Hagar on Facebook. I'm on YouTube again, Andrew Hagar. And yeah, that pretty much everything that you need to know can be found on Instagram. It's got links to all the relevant stuff, playlist links, interview links, all of that stuff, and updates as to my life and generally what I'm doing with my music and my time.
All
So
right.
again, at Andrew Hagar Official.
So, do you have any last words? Something you want to add before we go?
I really appreciate you. I really enjoyed both of these conversations, and thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to talk about a lot of the stuff I don't otherwise get a chance to talk about.
Well, you know what? You have carte blanche on this show. You can come back anytime. I would love to talk to you again.
Absolutely, man. I love it. We still got, I mean, we got a lot more stuff to cover if you want to do anything in depth, you know?
Hey, I'm ready now. With I have plenty of time.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I do have plans this evening, but
Okay, well, you know what? Stick around because Claw's Corner with Andrew Hagar Part 3 will be coming up very soon.
yes, sir. You better believe
All right. Well,
it.
Andrew, thank you very much for being on the show. It's great talking to you as always, and he will be
Yes,
back. I promise you. All
yes, sir.
right. That wraps up the latest episode of the Claw's Corner. A huge thanks goes out to journalist, MMA fighter and coach, commercial voice actor, singer, and songwriter Andrew Hagar for taking time out of his extremely busy schedule to be a guest on my show. Thank you very much. Another huge thanks goes out to editor extraordinaire John Bristol of Elmwood Productions for always doing a superb job editing this show each and every week and making it available to all. I'm also extremely grateful to Joseph Timothy Quirk and Rob Bull for all of their hard work making the show available on several Connecticut radio stations, as well as Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, Audible, and iHeartRadio. Thank you both very much. And lastly, but definitely not least, I need to thank you, the viewer, for always tuning in. Enjoy your day, everyone,